Arabic is an Afro-Asiatic language spoken in North Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Middle East. There are many dialects of Arabic, and some are more intelligible than others, but the modern standard form is called al-Fusha. It's an official language in 26 countries and is one of the 6 official languages of the UN. It's the liturgical language of 1.8 billion Muslims, with the Quran being written in the language. Quranic Arabic, also called al-Fusha, is seen as the purest form of the language. There's around 422 million speakers of the language on Earth, thus it's the 5th most widely spoken language in the world. As a quick summary of Arabic's history, its oldest ancestor is Proto-Arabic, which is thought to have been most frequent in the 2nd century BC, with Arabic names being found written in the Nabatean script. From this emerged Old Arabic, which was first attested in the Negev Desert in the 1st century BC, becoming more frequent after the decline of Safayitic and Hismaic. After the 4th century AD, more Arabic inscriptions were found in Hijaz and North Syria. Old Hijazi Arabic was first attested in Hijaz from the 1st to 7th centuries. It is thought to have been the written register of Arabic in the times of the Umayyad Caliphate. Classical Arabic was used in texts from the 7th to 9th centuries AD and was first found in many poetic texts, including the Quran. The orthography of the Quran was not standardized for Classical Arabic, and the standardized form instead originated from an orthography used by the Quraysh tribe of Mecca, which became widespread in the era of the Rashidun Caliphate. From this language descended MSA, which is what the rest of this video will be looking at. MSA, or Modern Standard Arabic, is the modern form of literary Arabic and is based off of Classical Arabic, but it has an expanded vocabulary for talking about the modern era. This language is what's printed on newspapers and is used in news broadcasting or public speaking, but as for everyday speech, people just use their local dialects, or Armiya. Let's first have a look at Arabic's phonology. Arabic's consonant inventory is known for its use of pharyngeals and pharyngalized phonemes. A pharyngeal is basically a sound produced using the pharynx, which is the crossroads between the nasal cavity, the mouth, and the esophagus. To pronounce a pharyngeal, you need to bring the back of your mouth way back to the pharynx and blow air through, hence why these sounds are so rare. Arabic's pharyngeal fricatives are both voiceless and voiced, and they appear in words such as har, himaya, haqiba, and ain, alim, and sab'a. Pharyngalization is when the pharynx is constricted when you produce a sound. This is called a form of secondary articulation and is seen in Arabic with these phonemes, often romanized with a capital letter. For example, tabib, sanduq, dabab, zuhr. Apart from these sounds, some other sounds a speaker of a European language would at least find interesting include the uvula stop, qaf, seen in words like qahira, qahwa, qasr. There's also a voiced velar fricative ghain, seen in words like ghurfa, ghasl, and Baghdad. As for the vowels, MSA only has 3, a, e, and u, as well as the 2 diphthongs au and I. These 3 vowels also have lengthened equivalents. Many Arabic dialects also have e and o phonemes, and dialects also tend to monophthongize I and au to just e and o. More about the dialects. There's around 30 dialects of Arabic, and they vary greatly depending on how close they are geographically. They're mainly divided into the Maghrebi dialects, the Levantine dialects, and the Gulf dialects. Although these dialects differ significantly depending on region, MSA remains consistent throughout the Arab world. The dialects' main differences to MSA are the loss of grammatical case, a strict SVO word order, a completely different mood system, and quite a few vowel shifts. Dialects are often influenced by other languages spoken in their areas. For example, Maghrebi dialects are influenced by Berber, Egyptian dialects are influenced by Coptic, and so forth. Here are some sentences in MSA and then in some dialects. I don't speak any of the dialects, so I am well aware that I'm about to butcher all of these, just do not come for me in the comments. أحب القراءة كثيرة. أنا بحب القراية كثير. أنا واجب أحب أقرأ. أنا كتير بحب القراية. أنا بحب القراية أوي. أنا زيز Okay, no, I'm just not even gonna... عندما ذهبت إلى المكتبة. لما رحت المكتبة. لما رحت المكتبة. لما رحت المكتبة. لما رحت المكتبة. Now let's move on to the writing system. The Arabic abjad is written from right to left and is originally derived from Nabatean. All characters have an isolated, initial, medial, and final form, with a couple exceptions. Being an abjad, the script doesn't write down vowel sounds and they're inferred by the reader. Although this type of system seems illogical, it works in Arabic, as since there's only 3 vowel sounds in MSA, it's easier to guess. Even though the language doesn't write short vowels, long vowels are actually written with these characters. There are also harakat, which are accents written above or below letters to indicate short vowels, but these are barely seen outside of the Quran or literature for children. If the consonant is geminated, or pronounced for twice the length of the normal consonant, it's indicated with the shadda, a W-shaped sign which appears above a letter. Some letters differ in region, like how in the Maghreb, fa can be written with the dot underneath, or how qaf can appear with no dots in the final position. But letters which aren't native to Arabic vary the most depending on region. Although the script is written from right to left, numerals are written from left to right. Western Arabic numerals are used in most of North Africa, which is what an English speaker may be used to, but in most countries to the east of Egypt, the Eastern Arabic numerals are used. Okay, the grammar. Arabic grammar is known for being notoriously tricky to the English speaker, mostly because of its use of non-concatenative morphology. What does that mean? It means that it's difficult. The way that it works is that there are roots which are fitted into templates to form words. A root is usually 3 bare consonants. For example, kataba is the writing root. We can fit that writing root into words like maktaba, maktab, katib, kitab, and aktubu. This root template system is also used in forming broken plurals, like kalb, kilab, bait, buyut, walad, awlad. There's many different forms for broken plurals, but many words just take a simple suffix depending on noun gender. Deriving words from roots comprises the majority of Arabic vocabulary, much more than any other language, and identifying the 3 roots in a word can help to identify its meaning. For example, slotting a root into this template derives the place at which it's enacted, so we can do some experimenting. If we put in the root dakhala to enter, we get a place where you enter, or an entrance. If you put in the root ta'ama to taste, you get a place where you eat, a restaurant. Now for nouns. Arabic inflects nouns for 3 numbers, the singular, dual, and plural. The dual is expressed with this suffix and denotes 2 of something, for example, kitab, kitaban, kutub. There are 2 genders, masculine and feminine. A feminine noun will often be marked with this thing, the ta marbuta, which is like a ha, but it's also a ta, but sometimes it's a ta. But like most of the time it's a ha. There are 3 cases in Arabic, the nominative, accusative, and genitive. The case suffix will depend on whether the noun is definite or indefinite. One way a noun can be definite is if it's marked with the definite article al. Because Arabic has what's called equational sentences, it basically means that you don't need the verb to be if one noun is definite and the other is indefinite. What I mean by this is, if you wanted to say, the man is a baker, you could just say, الرجل خباز, literally, the man baker. Here's another sentence, سيارتها جديدة, her car is new. This sentence shows adjectival agreement. If a noun is feminine, any adjective describing it must also take that ta marbuta to show the agreement. The word sayyara, which is feminine, is definite here because of the suffix ha, meaning her. There's different ways to make words definite. You'll see that ta marbuta changes to a regular t sound when a suffix is added to it. Verbs in Arabic are conjugated for either the non-past or past paradigms, tenses. Paradigms? Paradigm. Verbs in their dictionary form are written in the 3rd person masculine singular in the past tense, as it's the simplest form of the verb. So some common verbs include akala, shariba, kataba, raja'a, dhahaba. Person marking in the past tense is simply carried out with a bunch of different prefixes. Shariba, to drink, or actually he drank, and sharibat, she drank. For example, sharibat finjan qahwa, she drank a cup of coffee. The non-past is more difficult to conjugate because the vowels are often unpredictable. If we take this template, which is the 3rd person feminine singular in the present tense, we can slot in the root dhahaba to go, and we'll get tadhhab, she goes. Like tadhhab ila al-madrasa, she's going to the school. The future is created by adding the sa prefix to a present verb. For example, satakhraj min al-matar, she will exit the airport. Arabic also has the jussive mood, which is mostly used to form the subjunctive and imperative moods, and is also used to negate verbs. And now part 2 of why Arabic grammar is so daunting. Forms. Any given root can have up to 15 forms, although forms 11 to 15 are seldom seen in verbs. Verbs in different forms often carry out causative, reflexive, and intensive meanings, and each form has a different way of conjugating tense, forming verbal nouns, and that kind of stuff. The forms are distinguished by phonological differences, including vowel lengthening, gemination, and added prefixes. The forms are: Form 1, كتب, he wrote. Form 2, كتب, he made someone write. Form 3, كاتب, he corresponded with. Form 4, أكتب, he dictated. Form 5, تعلم, he taught himself. Form 6, تكاتب, he corresponded with, mutually. Form 7, انكتب, he subscribed. Form 8, اكتتب, he copied. Form 9, احمر, he turned red. And Form 10, استكتب, he asks someone to write. As I've already mentioned, conjugations differ in different forms. For example, while prefixes always take the a vowel in Form 1, they'll always take an u vowel in Form 2. Now let's have a look at some more sentences to see Arabic's word order. Modern Standard Arabic is VSO by default. That means it places the verb in the beginning of the sentence. For example, يزور المستشفى الجديد, he is visiting the new hospital. Word for word, it's he is visiting the hospital, the new. Hospital in the sentence is definite, so the adjective describing it has to be definite as well. If we take a more complex sentence, أريد المائدة تحت الشباك من فضلك. I would like the table below the window, please. Shockingly, if we translate it word for word, it's exactly the same as English. When pronouns are used, you can't use a VSO word order. For example, if we take that sentence from earlier, it'd be correct to say هو يزور المستشفى الجديد rather than يزور هو المستشفى الجديد. Now let's add some cases to these sentences. كتب كتابا قديما. He wrote an old book. Because kitab is indefinite, the case ending for the accusative will be an. If we decide to make kitab definite, we'll get كتب الكتاب القديم. We see here that the accusative ending for the definite nouns is just a. Case endings aren't pronounced when they come at the end of the sentence, and they're also commonly omitted in everyday speech. Now let's try to negate a sentence. أنا لا أشرب العصير. I don't drink juice. The verb أشرب is negated by the word لا, meaning no. But what if we try to make this sentence past tense? أنا لم أشرب العصير. The word لا cannot be used to negate verbs in the past tense, so instead the word lam is used. You also may have noticed that ashrabu drops its final vowel, because any verb following lam has to take the jussive. And in the future, we can use one of two different ways. One being, أنا لا سوف أشرب العصير. I will not drink the juice. Sulfa is another way of making the future tense, and it gets abbreviated to sa, which we saw earlier. But when abbreviated, the verb can't be negated. The other way of negating the future is أنا لن أشرب العصير. Here we see len being used, and ashrabu is again put into the jussive. Using lan intensifies the meaning a bit. It suggests more, I will never drink juice. Finally, let's just dissect one massive sentence. لم أريد لقاء المدرس اللبناني بالمدرسة المحاذية للبنك الجديد. I didn't want to meet the Lebanese teacher in the school next to the new bank. Okay, well, lam urid means I didn't want. We see here lam is negating the present verb urid, meaning I want. Liqa'a means meeting. Al-mudarris al-Lubnani is an example of a noun being turned into an adjective. The word Lubnan means Lebanon, and adding a long e suffix makes it an adjective. And this strategy can be applied to any noun, like deen to dini or iqtisad to iqtisadi. These adjective-turned nouns are called nisba adjectives. Back to the sentence, بالمدرسة means in the school. محاذية means adjacent to or next to, and it modifies the word للبنك, which itself is being modified by the word الجديد. Well, thanks for watching the first video on the Coffee with Linguistics channel. My next video will be on the revival of Hebrew, so please subscribe to be notified when it's uploaded. If you want to join my Discord server, the link will be in the description. أراكم في المرة القادمة.